Let's see what question 4 is about. All right. Well, look at that. The first question, the first part in question 4 is a functions question. Get started and send your answers on the chat question. All right, so this is a basic question with functions. And when I was teaching functions a few weeks ago, I told you all that if you had something in the brackets, right, you always work kind of picture it like this in your head. You're working backwards. So you're going to put 1/3 into G. So what do I mean by put 1/3 into G? Well, here's the function gx. And whatever you have in the brackets, when you go backwards, we bounce up the letter G. We go to the equation and replace x with whatever is in the brackets. So the working should look something like this. You go to the equation. Here we have the letter X. We throw him away, and in brackets, keywords. When you replace X, please put it in brackets. Sometimes it will make the world of a difference. So in this case here, 1/3 multiplied by 3. Well, the 3 will cancel out with the 3 here, leaving with 1 minus 1. So the final answer for this particular question would be 0, because 1 minus 1 is 0. All right, so let's just predict like how this question could come different in the exam for your year coming up. I would like you all to try this version of the questions. If I had G squared and after that I had 1/3, I want you all to work out this particular question. Obviously, we should get a different answer because of the square. See if you remember how to handle a question like that. All right, so I had asked you all to work this question out. You see how the squared is hovering over the G. This actually means G 1/3. That is how you interpret this question, because the squared is hovering over the G. Doesn't squared means you put 2 of it next to each other? So that's how I want you to interpret it. We still have to work backwards with the functions. So what we have to do is put 1/3 into G. And whatever answer we get here, whatever we get, we have to put it back again into G. So the first thing we want to work out, we're going to put 1/3 into G. So we're going to find 1/3 G, which we already did in this question. And we saw when we worked that out, right? We got 0. So when we put 1/3 into G, we got 0. So let's imagine a 0 here now. So this 0 now, we're going to go back to the same equation, but this time we replace an X with the new answer, which is 0. So we're really working out G 0. And whatever we get here is our final answer. So we have 3 here. We have X. Replace that with 0 and minus 1. Anything by 0 is 0 minus 1. 0 minus 1 is minus 1. So the final answer for G squared 1/3 is minus 1. This is your final answer. For those who got it wrong, well, I hope it did just jog their memory a little bit. All right, so take down the correct working, and I'm going to change up this question a little bit again, right? So let me erase this. Now look at the slight difference between this question and the one about and now about a writer. G 1/3, but this whole thing is going in brackets, and then we put the squared outside the brackets. You notice where the squared is in this one and where the squared is in this one. Let's see what answer you get for the new one, the white question. in this particular question over here, because of the big brackets and according to BODMAS, we have to work out this first. Now, we already know what we're going to get when we find G 1/3. We did it like twice just now. So when we put 1/3 into G, we're going to get what? 0. We did, like I said, I showed you that twice. And now we have to do what with that final answer? Square it. But 0 squared is 0. So the final answer is 0. Please make a mental note of the difference in between these two questions. It makes a big difference where the squared is located. Right, now I'm going to change up this question one more time, right? Look at, in this question, look at where I place the 1/3. If I give you this now, if I come and tell you gx is equal to 1/3, but the instructions have to be a little different. They have to tell you solve for x. Could you all do this question now? The 1/3 is no longer next to the g. It's on the other side of the equal sign. Your job is to find the value of x. So I'm saying that this question is different because we're trying to get the value of x. It's not like they told us what x is. So what we have to do in a case like this, didn't they give us an expression for gx? Then they tell us that gx is the same exact thing as 3x minus 1. They have a big equal sign here. So what they want us to do is take gx, throw it away, and replace it with 3x minus 1, and now put it equal to 1/3. And now they want you to solve for x. So it's a transposing question. You throw across -1, ask yourself what you will get. The 3's are multiplied, throw it across, what will you get? So see if you can finish it from there. All right. So let's try our best to simplify this. So we throw across -1. When we throw across -1, we're going to get +1. So, well, we can add 1/3 plus 1 is 1 and 1/3, right? Obviously. What we could do is, change this to an improper fraction because nobody likes mixed fractions. 1 by 3 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So it's 4 on 3, right? Right. But we still have to solve for x. But I think this is where a lot of people get into problems. So you take the 3, which is our multiply, you throw across the multiply, and then this whole thing gets divided by 3. That's this 3 here underneath here. Now it looks strange, but let's write this back like how we would write it in primary school. Isn't this the same thing as, I need the space here, 4 on 3? Doesn't this mean divide? So we put our divide, and what are we dividing by? We are dividing by 3. This is how you would write it in primary school. It would never look like this. Isn't 3 the same thing as 3 on 1? What would you do here in primary school? The divide would change to a multiply, and this side would flip. So we get 1 on 3. Multiply the top by the top. 4 by 1 is 4. 3 by 3 is 9. The answer is 4/9. Look at the mistakes. A lot of people got it wrong, right? So make sure you understand all the steps. And of course, take it down and let me know when you are finished. Let's see what's next. All right. Oh, so this one here is an inverse question where they want you to find f inverse -3. Give you a little hint. We have to put -3 into f inverse, but we don't have f inverse as yet. So I think you need to find f inverse first and then put the -3 into it. In case you can't remember, the inverse is the one with the magic dust, where we'll sprinkle magic dust on it and switch the X and the Y. That should ring some bells. Right, so get started and send your answers as usual. So let's find the inverse of f first. To find the inverse of a function, well, I think we should probably just write the function fx first. So you put fx, I'm not changing up anything, same exact thing written on the paper. Fx and y is basically the same thing. So what you want to do is change this fx to y. So now it looks a little bit easier on the eyes. When we do this, this is where we sprinkle what I consider the magic dust, right? So we sprinkle magic dust all over this. What does the magic dust do? It switches the x and the y. All the y's become x and all the x's become y. So this y will change to x and this x will change to y. But you notice something. When we switch the x and y, before, who was the subject? Y was the subject. But after we sprinkle the dust, x becomes the subject. What we need to do is make back y the subject. So we need to get y alone on one side and well, everyone else on the other side. So we begin to throw everybody else on the other side. We throw across positive 7, we will get what? Minus 7. And remember, this 5 is a multiply. When we throw across this multiply after, this whole thing gets divided by 5. But you see how I write it, right? I write one big divide sign underneath both items. And then I divide by 5. Once we make y the subject, we have just found the inverse. So now we write it like this. F inverse x. Like we just basically throw this away and replace it with f inverse x and put the expression we worked hard to get. So now we have f inverse. So now the examiner wants us to find what? F inverse minus 3. Well, great. We can take minus 3 now and throw it into f inverse because we have f inverse. This x here gets replaced with minus 3. Now remember, when you're typing in this on the calculator, you have to be careful. Whenever you have 2 or 3 items on top and you want to divide, make sure and put it in brackets on your calculator. Otherwise, the calculator will give you the wrong answer. Minus 3 minus 7 is minus 10. Minus 10 divided by 5 is minus 2. So the final answer is minus 2. Right, so take down all the working. Now I'm going to think through how I could change this up. I want you all to find fgx and simplify it. You will notice that it have no equal sign. It doesn't have a number inside the brackets. So I remember I showed you all how to do a question like this. Good luck. Well, I just saying, if we had a number here, it would have made life so easy. Like if we had 2 over here, we would put 2 into G, we would get a number, and that new number, we would put it into F. But we don't have a number here. So we have to do the next best thing. We have to take Gx, and we're still working backwards, and throw it into where? F. But remember, Gx isn't a number. Gx is an expression. So you can visualize it like this, right? All we can do is throw away Gx and replace it with what? Its expression. And we're going to take this and throw it into F. So let me do this in slow motion. I'm going to write back Fx here, right? So Fx is 5x plus, I'm spacing it out for a reason. I ain't already changed nothing. I just space it out more. So if I want to find 3, the rule is whatever you have in the brackets, no matter how crazy it is, you have to erase x When we go into f, we erase the x and we put what in its place? We have to put whatever is in the brackets. So we throw away x and replace it with 3x minus 1. But when you replace the x, make sure and put it in brackets. The brackets today will make the world of a difference. If you don't put that brackets, I guarantee you your answer will not be correct. So now we just have to take our time now and multiply out the brackets. Everyone inside here gets multiplied by 5. 5 by 3x is 15x. 5 by minus 1 is minus 5. And we have this annoying positive 7 here. We could simplify this a little bit. Minus 5 plus 7 is positive 2. So for the people who got this 15x plus 2, you all have it correct. Right, so take down the working, right? Let's see what the next part of the question holds for us. All right, so the question shifts from functions, and now it's a y equals mx plus c type of question. All right, so we did a ton of questions like these. So whenever they ask you to find the equation of a straight line, your job is to find m and c. M is your gradient and c is your y-intercept. Right? The good news is the formula for gradient, the letter m, is on the paper itself. So I guess I should write it. The formula for gradient is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. A little bit. The first thing we need to do when we're finding the equation of a straight line, well, we need to find the gradient. I know there is a different way of doing this question where you could find m and c together, but I prefer to find them separately. To find the gradient, we need 2 points on the line, but 2 points that we're 100% sure of. So we just have to go to the graph and try to locate 2 points that we can be very, very accurate about. And there are other points you could choose, right? But you see, for this point here, I'm very sure this is the point 3 on the x and 2 on the y. There's no uncertainty there. And this point here is 6 what? 3. So I'm real sure about those 2 points. Since we have 2 points, you can probably label them A and B. You can physically, I would advise in the exam that you physically write everything in red, like how I have it there, right? So the examiner will know what you are thinking. Call the first point x1 and y1, and the next point x2 and y2. Remember, x comes before y. All we have to do now is go to this equation here, right? We have y2, we have y1. It's just to substitute them in. So it's 3 minus 2, and x2 minus x1 is 6 minus 3. We're going to get 1/3. So the gradient is 1/3. So this is what we know so far about the straight line. The equation of any straight line is y is equal to mx plus c. We just reasoned out that the gradient was 1/3. So why keep the letter m there? Just throw him away and replace him with 1/3. Now to find c, there are 2 ways we can find c today, right? There are 2 ways. C is your y-intercept. Couldn't we just watch the graph and figure out the y-intercept? The y-intercept is where the graph slices the y-axis. So immediately, without any further calculation, we know the y-intercept is 1, or the c value is 1. But let's just pretend for a little while that the paper got smudged and we couldn't see where it sliced the y-axis. And, you know, we wanted to calculate it, right? We had no choice. Well, to do that is pretty easy. Once we have M, choose one of the points. You could choose A or B. I'm going to choose point A. And according to point A, X is 3 and Y is 2. So all we have to do here is go here, replace Y with 2 and X with what? 3. And we just solve for C, which is going to be real easy because 1/3 by 3 is 1. The 3 and the 3 will cancel out. So to solve for C, we throw across +1 to get -1. So your y-intercept is still +1. So we have 2 ways of figuring it out, right? And there's a small piece of advice. Whenever you get whenever you get reoccurring decimals, like I know some people will be tempted to put 0.33 here. That's really not a good idea. Whenever you get a reoccurring decimal, please put the fraction once it's a simple fraction, like don't put 0.33. We all know 0.33 is 1/3, and 1/3 is more accurate than rounding off the 0.33333 to 0.33. So if I were marking the exam and you put 0.33 here, I would take away marks. Put the fraction. Okay, that's the best advice I can give there. Right? If you have any questions, just type it on the chat. While I'm teaching, I'll try my best to answer it. Right. Oh, and another thing is this point here. Now, some people are stating this point here wrong. I know you could choose other points, right? You could choose any 2 points you want, right? This point here, who can tell me the coordinates of this point? If you decided to choose that point, what would be that point? No, people are saying it wrong. It's not 0 - 3. Right, it's -3, 0. That is why so many people are getting it wrong. This is, if you choose this point, shouldn't we put the x coordinate first? Isn't the x coordinate -3 and the y coordinate 0? A lot of people are putting 0 - 3 because they chose this point. But if you write it as 0 - 3, that's 100% wrong, right? So I hope that clears up, you know, well, why, for those who got it wrong and chose this point, I hope that clears up the error. All right, so let's change up this question, right? Let's expand on it. So we just learned that the equation of this line was, let's get it here, y is equal to 1/3 x plus 1. Now, the equation of the line is also called the law of the line. So just in case, I saw this was, they used this in some exam a few years ago, and it confused students. They didn't understand what the law of the line is. The law of the line is the same exact thing as the equation of a straight line, y equals mx plus c, just a different way of saying it. So we know how to find the y-intercept. Well, let's see if you can remember how to find the x-intercept. Now, the x-intercept is where the line slices the x-axis. Now, we can see clearly here that the y-intercept is -3. But let's say once again, paint falls over this, and we can't figure out where it slices the x-axis. I want you all to use calculations to prove the x-intercept is actually -3. But you gotta show the working for it, because that's how the examiner might state the question. Prove or show that the x-intercept is -3. And of course, this is provided that you already know the equation of the straight line, which luckily we do. All right, so whenever you're trying to find the x-intercept, whenever something slices the x-axis, you could bet all your money that the y value is 0 anytime something slices the x-axis. So all you have to do is go to the equation of the line, which we have, replace y with 0, and then try to solve for x, right? Now, don't let the fraction get to you, right? You can always use your calculator to do that part, right? Throw across +1, you will get what? -1. So I know some of you all are fidgeting here with this 1, 2, like you don't know what to do with that 1, 2, because you have to solve for the x. But this 1, 2 is a secret multiply at the end of the day because it's touching the x. And when you throw across a multiply, you're going to get what? A divide. Okay? -1 divided by 1/3 is -3. Now you can use the calculator to do that, or if you want to do it manually, you can write it back like how they would write it in primary school. -1, this is a divide here, 1/3, right? The divide will change to a multiply, and this will flip to give you 3 on 1. Well, the 1 could go into 1, it won't really make a difference. -1 by 3 is -3. So we get the x-intercept to be -3. Right? So you have two ways you can do it. Use a calculator or do the old-fashioned way. All right, so let's change up this question some more. Right? What other types of questions I've seen come in the exam? All right, here's another question. You all notice that, like, if I ask you what's the x value, sorry, what's the y value when x is 6? Well, that's real easy. You could use the graph, right? When x is 6, the y value at the same time is 3. You all can see that, right? You just have to read it off the line. When x is what? 6, y is 3. If I ask you what's the value of y when x is 3? When x is 3, y is how much? 2. So you can read those pretty comfortably off the graph. How about this one? If I come and ask you, if I come and tell you, when x is 8, how much is the value of y? You all notice that in these cases here, the y value was flush whole numbers. Do you all think you all can estimate or get the value of the y value at L? Well, like if somebody bet you $10 million that you could get the exact value, but if you lose, you have to pay them $10 million. Would you use your eyes to estimate that? Would you bet $10 million that the y value is 3.5? That seems to me like a real terrible idea, because you're not, it's kind of, if 10 people look at that, 10 people might say slightly 10 different answers. Some people say it's 3.5. Then somebody will say, no, it's 3.6. Then somebody else will be like, no, it's 3.6825. The only way to get a really accurate answer is through calculations. Your eyes will not give you an accurate answer over there. So remember, we have the equation of the line. It's 1/3 x plus 1, right? Remember, when it comes like I am giving you the x value. So you could use the equation to find your y value. In these types of questions, the examiner is just simply asking you to go to the equation and replace x with how much? 8. You think you all could do that for me? Because when you replace x with the value, you will get the corresponding value for y using the equation. That's the only way to get an accurate answer, and then you will win your $10 million. Right? And if you're getting a reoccurring decimal, put it as a fraction. Do not put reoccurring decimals in the exam. Let's see if you guys got it correct here. We replacing the x with what? 8, right? So 1/3 of 8, right, is 2 and 2/3, right? Because 3 into, well, we can do this, right? So 1/3 of 8 is 2 and 1/3. And then you have plus 1. Well, when you add this, you're going to get what? 3 and 2/3. Write it like this, not 3.66, please, I beg you. All right? Right. And of course, this could be the other way around. Now check this out, right? This graph over here is short, right? But we know that if we had a long enough ruler, couldn't this graph be extended on and on and on and on forever? It's just our paper has a limited amount of space. So here's the question now. Somewhere up here, right? Let's say when y is 22. So that's quite off of my screen. If I come and tell you to find the x value when y is 22, could you all do that for me? Because we cannot use the graph now, because the values that we are asking for is way beyond our graph. So all you have to do is go back to the equation again, but this time you're replacing the y with 22, because the examiner gave you the y value and you have to transpose to find back the x value. All right. Right, so I've seen that come in the exam as well. So let me load up the, we'll put back the equation to get ready. Y is equal to 1/3 x plus 1. So let's go through it again. So what we're doing, we're going to replace the y this time with 22, because that was the plan. So we replace that with 22. And it's time to solve for x. So the first person you're going to throw across is the positive 1. Throw across positive 1, we're going to get -1. Now, I doubt anybody had any problems up to this point. 22 minus 1 is 21. But now it's time to throw across the 1/3. Now, remember, this 1/3 is a multiply. So when you throw across the multiply, you're going to get what? A divide. So the whole 21 gets divided by 1/3. So once again, 21 divided by 1/3. Remember, 1/3 and 3 is not the same thing. So I realized a lot of people just saw 21 in their head and 3 in their head and thought the answer was 7. But when you analyze it, right, 21, the divide changes to a multiply, and then this flips. So you end up with 21 multiplied by 3, which is 63. The x value would have been 63, not 7, and definitely not 65, which were two popular wrong answers. All right, so take down the work. There are plenty more ways I could twist this question. Plenty more. How about we find the length of a line? When's the last time you want to find the length of a line? So, well, let's not find the length of the whole line, right? I'm just going to paint piece for you all. From here, we get in pink. From here, all the way to here. Let's say the line, the portion of the line we are interested in is from A to B, the pink part. Let me give you the coordinates for it one time in case it's hard to see. The coordinates of A is -3, 0. And the coordinates of B is 6, 3. Find the length of that portion of the line for me, please. Right? Oh, to be fair, to find the length of a line, the formula is given on the past paper itself in the formula sheet. So let me put it here. It's x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then let's have this huge square root sign above it. Now, sometimes it is put the y's first and the x second. It really doesn't matter, right? So find the length of the pink portion of that line. So this came up for this. All right, so let's see what minor mistakes could have been made. So I gave you 2 points and you have a formula. So it's x1, y1, call the next point x2 and y2, right? As we all know, we could choose B first or A first. It really doesn't matter. We go to the equation here. x2 minus x1, let me see. x2 is 6. x1 is -3. So I think some people forgot that the formula has a minus sign So sometimes x1 is also negative. So sometimes two negative signs will come together. So it's x2 minus, and x1 is another minus 3. So I think two minus signs going to touch here. y2 minus y1. Well, this one is easy. It's just 3 minus 0. Well, you're going to get 9 squared here because 6 plus 3 is 9. Over here is just 3 squared. Have the annoying square root sign there. 9 squared is 81. 3 squared is 9. So you get the square root of 90, which is 9.49. And you have to put the word units after to get full marks. All right, so take down the work. Well, a lot of people got that correct, but let me change up this question again, right? It has so much different ways that this could come in the exam, but you might as well use this as an excuse, to already prepare. Let's say that you had this point over here. Let's call this point K. This point looking like 4, 8, right? Most of the times in the exam, they will not write in the coordinates, but how you all might not be able to see the screen properly, I letting you know that this is the point 4, 8. If we have a line that goes through K, and the examiner tells you the blue line and the original line are parallel, so they told you that, could you all find the equation of the blue line for me, knowing that both lines are parallel, but the new line is obviously going through a different point, K. Find the equation of that line. This is a y equals mxc type of question, yes. So I'll give you all a hint, right? Based on the answers, I think we need some hints. Parallel lines have the same what? Gradient. Parallel lines have the same gradient. So you all remember from this one. When we found the equation of this line, right, the original line, remember the gradient was 1/3. Remember we had found that, right? So that means without any further calculations, if we know the gradient of this line is 1/3, then the gradient of the parallel line is also 1/3. Now, parallel lines have the same, if you look at the notes I gave you, parallel lines have the same gradient, but the y-intercept will be different. So this is what we know about the blue line, the parallel line. Y is equal to 1/3 x, but we still don't know c. Now, remember, I drew this line freehand, right? So, and of course, it's going in between 7 and 6 or something like that, right? So it's probably not a good idea to estimate it using our eyes. To find c, we need 1 point on the line. Lucky for you, I gave you point K. Remember, according to point A, which is on the line, x is what? 4 and y is 8. So couldn't you all substitute it inside here? Replace y with 8, x with 4, and solve for c. Right? So I'll give you some time to do that. So what we want to do is replace y with, something's blocking my view, y with 8. So we're going to replace this with 8. X with 4 plus c. All right. Well, this is the same thing as 4 on 3 plus c, or 1 and 1/3. If you want to put 1 and 1/3. So we want to solve for c. So we throw across this. So we get 8 minus 4 over 3. Now, if you don't like the 4 over 3, this is the same thing as 1 and 1/3, right? So if you have, you could do this on a calculator or anyhow you want, but I believe we will get 8 minus 1/3. I think we're going to get 6 2/3 if we solve for C. And of course, if you don't want to put it as a mixed fraction, 6 by 3 is what? 18 plus 2 is the same thing as 20 on 3. So your y-intercept is 6 2/3. And we could kind of see that that actually makes sense based on the graph there. You can put 6 2/3 here or 20 on 3. The examiner is not going to really care which one you put. Right, so check back your working, right? I think a lot of people made a lot of mistakes with minus in the fractions. Remember, your calculator also has fractions button, right? You can just say 8 minus 4 on 3 using the fractions button, and the calculator will do the whole thing for you. All right, so let's clear this here. All right, so let's say now we have a point. Let's call this, let me make a random point here. Let's say this point looking like what? Call this point P, and this looking like what? 3, 5. Let's say we have a line going through here now. And it just so happens that this blue line and this black line are perpendicular. They are at right angles. Find the equation of the blue line for me, please. Right? Remember, parallel lines have the same gradient, but this is not parallel. This is perpendicular. All right. So remember the equation of the original line. Well, this should be in everyone's head is 1/3 x plus 1. So the gradient of this line here is 1/3. But how do you find the gradient of a perpendicular line? Remember, you have to find something called the negative reciprocal. That just means you're going to take this gradient and flip it. But you also have to make the sign the opposite. So if you flip 1/3, you will get 3 on 1. And of course, the positive changes to a negative. Well, 3 divided by 1 is 3. So the gradient of the blue line is -3. So this is what we know about the blue line. Y is equal to minus 3x plus c, because we know the gradient. We just need to figure out the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, we need a point on the blue line. You do have a point, 3, 5. X is 3, y is 5. Go on, replace y with 5 and the x with 3. Minus 3 by 3 is -9. Want to solve for c, throw across -9, they get +9. You're getting 14. So the equation of that blue line is y is equal to minus 3x plus what? 14. This is your final answer here. Right? So you have to flip it and change your sign. Right? When you have -3 and 1, please simplify it to -3, because we know 3 divided by 1 is still 3. Right? So now we move on. We're going to finish this question today, right? So take down the working, take a few. Right. But this one, everyone should be able to get this one up. What they did in this question, they gave you the equation of a different line. And they want to know where it would cross the x-axis. In other words, they're asking you for the x-intercept. We just did a question like that one. Right? And B is just as easy. All right. So whenever we're trying to find the x-intercept, we have to replace the y with 0. So the equation is y, sorry, there's a bad color there, can't see that. So the equation is y is equal to minus 2x plus 8. All we have to do is replace the y with 0. So we throw across positive 8. And when you throw across positive 8, you will get minus 8. But a few people forgot that when you're throwing across the minus 2, which is a multiply, don't we get a divide? We end up dividing minus 8 by minus 2. So it's positive 4. Now they ask us for the coordinates, right? Yeah, we have to write it like this. The answer will be 4, 0, because it cuts. But number when they say a coordinate, they mean they want the x and y values, right? And of course, whenever something slices the x-axis, the y coordinate is automatically 0. Now, part B is super easy. They just ask you for the y, where it crosses the y-axis, the coordinates. Isn't C, you all realize this is y is equal to mx plus c, right? C is the y-intercept. So it will slice the y-axis at 0, 8. You can't write the 8 alone. They ask you for the coordinates, plural coordinates, what the x and the y. When something slices the y-axis, the x value, you could be sure it will be 0, right? All right, so let's see. I'm hoping that's the end. I don't know if we have a next part to the question, right? But this is pretty straightforward. So let's move on to the next one here. Right. So, right. So let's see what the next part is about here. All right, so I think we have one last part to do here, right? According to the graph, the solutions of the system. Oh, sorry. We got to go back in the next part here. It has something to do with line Q, right, sir? 1 second, guys. Right. So you need to make line Q is this one. Y is equal to minus 2x plus 8, okay? Now, remember in this question, we said that this line will cut what? The x-axis at where? 4, 0, and it will cut the y-axis at 0, 8. That is line Q, okay? We have to use that in order to do part C. So let's move to part C. All right. So remember, line Q, if we were to draw it on the graph, right? It will cut the x-axis at 4 and the y-axis at 8. You all seen it there, right? Cutting the y-axis at 8 and the x-axis at 4. So if we, in the exam now, you have to take your ruler and connect the 2 points. So if we were to draw line Q, it would look something like that. The solution to y and q, that's a fancy way of saying, where do the two graphs meet? What are the coordinates of where the two graphs meet? They want the x and the y value. That is what they want here, the x and the y value. What that looking like, guys? Right? Call the x first, eh? Right, it's 3 and 2. As simple as that. All right, but you needed to get the answers from part B to help you, right? All right.